Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into something fundamental, how all the parts of our bodies work together, for the long haul, health, energy, vitality.
And we're focusing specifically on this amazing connection between our bones and muscles. We've got insights from a really detailed conversation with a doctor, specializing in sports medicine, but also longevity.
Right. Someone who's worked with elite athletes, but sees how those principles apply to, well, all of us just trying to live well.
Exactly. So our mission here is to pull out the practical stuff, how to keep bones and muscles healthy, why it matters more broadly than you think, maybe bust a few myths.
Yeah. Ultimately empower you to, take charge of your health journey.
Let's do it.
Okay. First up, something that might honestly flip your understanding of your own skeleton. Our bones are surprisingly active. We think of them as like scaffolding, right?
That's the common picture, yeah. Just inert structure.
But
But the expert we're drawing from is really passionate about showing they're dynamic communicators. Active organs, really.
Active organs. Okay, tell me more.
Well, they release these signaling proteins. One key one is called osteocalcin, and this stuff travels everywhere.
Okay.
So in the brain, get this, it seems to act like a neuroprotectant, reducing oxidative damage, and it encourages neuron growth in the hippocampus.
Wait, the memory part of the brain? Bones are helping with memory?
Seems like it. It stimulates new connections. So yeah, not just about preventing breaks, it's about keeping your mind sharp.
That's genuinely surprising. I never would have connected those two.
Right. And it doesn't stop there. Osteocalcin talks to the pancreas, helping with insulin sensitivity. It helps muscles take up glucose.
For energy.
For energy, yeah. And for men, it can even signal the testes to produce testosterone. It's this whole internal communication network.
Wow, so bones are sending out memos all over the body.
Pretty much. And of course, the classic role, they store minerals, especially calcium. Super important, obviously.
Yeah, calcium for nerves, muscles, everything.
Essential. So this really throws out that whole idea of silent bones just sitting there.
Totally, because the expert really hammered home the consequences when things go wrong, like with osteoporotic fractures.
Oh, absolutely. It's not just a broken bone. The stats are, frankly, quite sobering. High rates of disability, loss of function, and a really significant mortality risk.
Yeah. Didn't the source mention something like 30% die within a year of a hip fracture?
That's the figure, 30%. It makes you realize bone health isn't just about fragility. It's fundamentally tied to longevity. We need to make bones, well, sexy almost, part of overall wellness.
Okay, so if they're that important, how do we build them up and keep them strong? Where do we start?
Well, we build up to what's called peak bone mass. Think of it like your bone savings account. For women, that peak is usually around age 28.
And for men?
A little later, typically around 30. After that, the goal shifts more towards maintenance, minimizing loss, which gets trickier, especially for women with hormonal changes.
Right. And exercise plays a big role here, I assume, not just for muscles?
Oh, absolutely critical for bones, too. The source highlighted some fascinating work on masters athletes. Older folks still competing seriously.
Yeah. What did they find?
They found that chronic, consistent exercise can basically keep bone density high, like way younger levels, even into older age.
That's fantastic news.
Yeah.
But is it any kind of exercise?
Well, the key seems to be impact, what the expert playfully called bashing your bones.
Bashing them. Like literally, Well, not literally bashing, but impact activities. Think basketball, running, volleyball, even just jumping, where your bones feel that force.
Okay, that jolt.
Exactly. That mechanical loading. The study suggested it's right up there with genetics and age in terms of importance for maintaining density.
That's huge. So things like swimming or cycling, while great for other things, might not be enough for bone density alone.
They're less effective for building bone, yeah.
Yeah.
You need that ground reaction force.
Interesting. Now, the expert also touched on this outdated, frankly harmful idea about women needing to be teeny tiny. How does that connect? It connects directly, unfortunately, especially during those crucial bone building years like adolescence. Extreme dieting to maintain a very low weight can mess with menstrual cycles.
Which means lower estrogen.
Exactly. And estrogen is vital for bone health. So that drive for extreme thinness can actually sabotage your peak bone mass potential.
A real long-term consequence.
Hmm.
What about other hormonal shifts, like pregnancy and breastfeeding?
Good point. Breastfeeding is amazing for the baby, of course, but it does temporarily lower the mother's bone density, maybe around 20% in the first 6 months.
Wow, 20%.
Yeah, which is why it's so important for moms to really focus on getting enough calcium, like 500 milligrams extra daily, ideally from food, maybe supplements to rebuild afterwards.
Okay, and then Menopause.
The big one for bone health, yes. Estrogen levels drop significantly, and estrogen is like the brakes on bone breakdown. So when it declines, bone loss can accelerate quite rapidly.
How rapidly are we talking?
It can be up to 15% loss in those first few years after menopause hits.
15%. That's substantial. And that leads us to osteoporosis, right?
Precisely. Osteoporosis is basically defined by that low bone density, usually a T-score of -2.5 or lower on a DEXA scan.
That's the bone density test.
That's the one. And that low score means your fracture risk jumps up significantly, like 40% or more. Its common affects millions, including, surprisingly to some, about 2 million men in the U.S.
2 million men. Wow. Now, the expert raised a concern about when people actually get these DEXA scans.
Yeah, this is a real issue. Often insurance might not cover it until age 65, but by then...
You could have lost a lot of bone already.
Exactly. Significant loss could have happened silently. So the recommendation is really consider getting a baseline scan earlier, especially around perimenopause or if you have risk factors.
Big family history.
Family history of osteoporosis or hip fractures, yeah. Or long-term steroid use. And, just being aware of lifestyle, sedentary habits, smoking, they don't help bone health or healing.
Okay, this is all painting such a connected picture. Let's go back to that bone-brain link you mentioned.
Yeah.
The bone-brain axis.
Yes, so that protein, osteocalcin, we talked about.
The messenger molecule.
Right. When it gets to the brain, it seems to protect against oxidative damage. But even cooler, it stimulates something called BDNF.
BDNF. Brain-derived neurotrophic factor.
That's the one. Think of it like Miracle-Gro for your neurons. It helps them grow, survive, make connections, especially in the hippocampus memory central.
So stronger bones could literally mean a healthier, maybe more plastic brain.
The correlation is definitely there in the research. Lower bone density is linked with higher rates of cognitive decline. It's another powerful reason to take bone health seriously. It's cognitive insurance, in a way.
Mind-blowing. Okay, shifting slightly. The expert pinpointed a critical decade for health. What years are those?
They highlighted ages 35 to 45 for both men and women.
Why those years specifically?
It's kind of the window before the major hormonal shifts of midlife really kick in. It's the prime time to really solidify healthy habits.
Like what?
Good nutrition, consistent exercise crucially, including both resistance training and cardio. Building that foundation.
So it's like banking health for later.
It's a great way to put it. And they recommend getting baseline labs done then. Check things like testosterone for men so you have a comparison point for later changes.
Makes sense.
Plus, hormone levels are generally higher in that decade, so it's physiologically the best time to really maximize muscle building. Get the most bang for your buck, exercise-wise.
And something about VO2 max.
Yes. VO2 max, basically how well your body uses oxygen during intense exercise. Building that up in your 30s and 40s gives you a bigger buffer against age-related decline.
Because it naturally drops off.
It can drop about 10% per decade after midlife if you're not actively maintaining it. Building a high VO2 max helps you stay further away from that fragility line as you get older. Keeps your engine running strong.
Okay, critical decade noted. Now let's fully switch gears to muscle. We talked about building it in that decade, but the expert had really encouraging news about starting later too.
Oh, absolutely. The message was loud and clear. It is never too late to build muscle. Seriously.
Never. Even in your 70s or 80s.
Even then, your body always responds to strategic stress, to resistance training. The source gave examples of older adults making huge strength gains. It's incredibly adaptable.
So that whole idea of muscle just inevitably wasting away, it's not the full picture.
Not at all inevitable. The rate might slow, sure, but the potential is there. And you don't need to live in the gym.
What's the minimum dose then?
For maintenance, even just a couple of solid strength sessions a week, focusing on progressive overload lifting a bit heavier over time makes a massive difference.
And they mentioned a specific type of lifting for longevity, something about power.
Yeah, especially as we move into midlife and beyond. Shifting the focus a bit towards power is beneficial. That means maybe fewer reps, but with heavier weights.
As opposed to just lifting lighter weights for more reps, like bodybuilders might do for size.
Exactly. Hypertrophy focuses on size. Power training focuses on functional strength, the ability to move quickly and forcefully. Think getting up out of a chair easily, catching yourself if you stumble. That's power.
Function over just aesthetics.
Yeah.
Got it. And muscle isn't just for moving either. You said it's like an endocrine organ?
Yes. This is so cool. When muscles contract, they release these proteins called myokines.
Myokines.
And they travel through the blood and influence other tissues. Like there's cloto, linked to longevity, GDNF, which helps nerve cell resilience, irisin, which affects bone and fat.
Wow, so exercise is triggering this whole chemical conversation.
Totally. And get this, studies show older athletes can have higher cloto levels than young sedentary people. It shows the power of staying active.
Incredible. What do we need to feed these amazing muscles? Protein, obviously.
Protein is king, yes. The general guideline is roughly 1 gram per pound of your ideal body weight, or maybe 1.6 grams per kilogram.
And quality matters.
Quality matters. You want sources rich in leucine, an amino acid that really triggers muscle protein synthesis. Whey protein is great, dairy too. Plant sources have it, but often in lower concentrations, so you need more volume.
Okay. What about creatine? Isn't that just for bodybuilders?
That's the old myth. The expert was clear. Creatine has benefits way beyond bulking up. Research strongly supports it for muscle strength and power, yes, but also increasingly for brain health.
Brain health, too.
Yeah, cognitive function benefits are emerging. About 5 grams a day is the standard recommendation. It's really a valuable supplement for overall physical and mental performance, not just for gym rats.
Good to know. Okay, let's tie bone and muscle back together. They obviously work as a team.
Absolutely. Muscles are like the bodyguards for your bones and joints. They act as shock absorbers.
So when you run or jump, the muscles take some of the hit.
Exactly. They cushion the impact, reducing stress on the skeleton and cartilage. Stronger muscles mean better protection.
Makes total sense. Less wear and tear over time.
Right. And maintaining healthy body composition, more muscle, less fat, is also huge for joints. Excess weight puts incredible pressure on cartilage. The source mentioned like 7 to 9 times your body weight going through joints when you move.
Whoa!
Yeah. So strong muscles help manage that load.
Okay, let's talk menopause again.
Yeah.
It's obviously a massive hormonal shift, and the expert really emphasized its impact goes way beyond hot flashes, especially in the musculoskeletal system.
It's so important to understand this. And perimenopause, the decade before actual menopause, is when things start changing. The expert really pushes back against that old just suffer through it mentality.
Yeah, they mentioned musculoskeletal syndrome of menopause.
Yes. Framing it as a distinct syndrome helps recognize that the drop in estrogen affects muscle, bone, tendons, ligaments. It's all connected.
What kind of symptoms fall under that umbrella?
Things like arthralgia, that's sort of total body joint pain. Frozen shoulder is common. Sarcopenia, significant muscle loss, maybe 20%, and more tendon and ligament problems like tendinitis.
Wow, that's a lot, all linked back to estrogen loss.
Estrogen is key for maintaining bone density, muscle mass, and even keeping inflammation in check. So when it drops, you see these widespread effects.
So what can be done? Hormone replacement therapy, HRT was mentioned.
Yes, and the experts stressed relying on scientific understanding, not outdated fear, when considering HRT. It can be very effective for managing these musculoskeletal symptoms, among others. The key is menopause literacy, getting educated, finding supportive doctors.
Being proactive, not passive.
Got
it. Let's talk back pain. It's so incredibly common. Why?
Oh, it's a massive issue. Leading cause of disability globally, actually. And it definitely increases with age and, crucially, sedentary lifestyles.
Our modern lives again.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
The expert contrasted us with groups like the Hadza tribe, who move constantly and differently and don't have the same rates of back pain. For us, it's often prolonged sitting, weak core muscles.
Slouching at desks.
That's a big part of it. And in older folks, especially women post-menopause, vertebral compression fractures due to weaker bones can be a major factor.
Is all back pain the same?
No, it's important to distinguish general aches from something like nerve impingement sciatica, that radiating leg pain. That needs proper medical assessment.
Any simple tips mentioned?
Yeah, things like standing desks, walking treadmills for less intense computer work, just breaking up the sitting. And interestingly, they noted that movement itself seems to help learning and retention. Move more, maybe remember more.
Okay, motivation is key for sticking with any health changes. Any tips on that front?
A really good one was shifting focus from vague long-term goals to immediate positive feedback, like, I'll feel better tomorrow if I exercise today.
Short-term wins.
Exactly. Those daily reinforcements build momentum. Also, using data body composition scans, maybe glucose monitors can be really motivating, seeing objective progress beyond the mirror.
Data as a driver.
Yeah. But ultimately, the expert came back to self-worth. Truly valuing your health, that self-love, is the most powerful, sustainable motivator for making lasting changes.
That makes sense. Now, there was a really alarming connection drawn between metabolic health, specifically prediabetes, and cognitive decline.
This was critical. Prediabetes, where your blood sugar is high, but not yet diabetic level, isn't just a stepping stone to type 2 diabetes within, say, 10 years.
It's linked to Alzheimer's, too.
Significantly. It's a major risk factor for developing Alzheimer's in the following decade. And the scary part is, prediabetes is massively underdiagnosed. People often don't know they have it.
And there's a specific link for women around menopause.
Yes, because the metabolic changes during perimenopause, like decreased insulin sensitivity, changes in fat metabolism, look almost identical to the changes in prediabetes.
So it's like a double whammy.
It can be, potentially compounding the risk for both diabetes and Alzheimer's postmenopause. It just screams for early intervention and lifestyle changes, starting back in that critical 35-45 decade.
Wow. That really highlights the need for proactive health management. Finally, there was a point about empathy, particularly for men understanding what women go through during perimenopause and menopause.
Yeah, just recognizing the profound physiological and emotional shifts happening, understanding that it's biological, not just, moods, can lead to much stronger, more supportive partnerships. It's about navigating it together.
That's a great point to end on. This has been incredibly insightful. So to quickly recap, bones and muscles are not just structure. They're dynamic, talking to each other, talking to our brain, influencing our metabolism.
Yeah, they're key players in our overall health and longevity. And the big takeaway is that we have a lot of agency here. Proactive choices, especially starting around that 35-45 window about movement, nutrition, getting informed about hormones, they can hugely impact how we age.
Prioritizing impact exercise, resistance training, getting enough protein and calcium, seeking good information. These are the keys.
Absolutely. It's about investing in a longer, stronger, more vibrant life.
So our final thought for you today. What's one small actionable thing you could do starting now to invest in your bone or muscle health? Maybe it's just adding some stairs, blending a protein-rich meal, or even just Googling DEXA scan.
Just take a moment. Think about how that one small step today could ripple outwards, contributing to your long-term well-being, your independence, your vitality down the road.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.